Hey everyone, welcome to this thoughts video and I guess my review of Gran Turismo 7. I'm now about 50 hours in and I feel it's time to share my thoughts on Gran Turismo's first proper release in over 8 years. Now, I never played GT6 or 5, I dabbled in some GT Sport, but really the last major Gran Turismo I played was 4, and that game did leave a powerful impression on me. Ahead of 7's release, I actually returned to 4 and played it to refamiliarize myself with the franchise and make sure I wasn't viewing the older games through too much nostalgia, which I thought was important because Gran Turismo 7 was looking more and more like a return to form for the series. So I grabbed a PS5 and dove in. I'll start this review how I always do, with the driving. How do the cars feel in GT7? I use the term console sim to describe the handling model here, one that aims for realism without being too unforgiving, and GT7 nails that. The thing is, even if you have the nicest sim rig, you just don't get the type of feedback that a real car gives you during a real race, and most people agree that sim racing can be harder in a way than real racing because of that. Console sims like Gran Turismo address this by being a tad more forgiving, and honestly, for me, that's the sweet spot. Driving in GT7 still feels lively and realistic, but not unfair. It absolutely coaches you to be a better driver, the handling is challenging and rewarding without being frustrating. I played on my Thrustmaster setup, which was fantastic right out of the box, but did try the game on controller, and the experience, while worse than on wheel, was still solid. The haptics on the PS5 controller work great. Now, there were some issues I experienced. Rally is where some of the handling gets rough. Gran Turismo has always had an odd, non-committed relationship with off-road racing, and that continues here in 7. The feeling while your tires are connected to the road is fine, but as soon as you leave the ground, you better pray to the physics gods because it's pretty much a coin flip on whether or not your landing will go as planned. If you're into drifting, the drifting is good, the tire and suspension model feel great, but due to a bug that is now partially fixed, I wasn't able to use my shifter, handbrake, or even my drift wheel, so I haven't spent much time with it yet. And finally, I do want to mention assists, mainly traction control. I mentioned that GT is more forgiving as far as sims go, but in higher power cars, if you don't have traction control on, you may have a bad time. I set mine to level 1 out of 5 and left it there. It's felt great. So the handling is, with minor exceptions, spectacular across the board, and a high point for the franchise. I could even tell how much it's improved over GT Sport. There has been, however, one major stick in the mud when it comes to GT7's driving, and that's the cameras. There are 4 options. The chase cam feels very stiff, but as a wheel user I wouldn't drive with that anyway. The bumper cam feels good, but isn't my preferred choice as you can't see any of the car, so an 800 horsepower track spec Supra looks just like a stock Honda Fit. There's the driver cam, but again, most wheel players don't use this, and the FOV, especially in some cars, is pretty limited. There's no real option here to move the camera forward in front of the wheel, which would be the ideal position for wheel users. So that leaves us with the roof cam, not hood cam. This places you on top of the car, which does give a good field of view, but is really hard to get used to. I feel like I'm Mr. Bean or a Google Maps camera driving these cars around. A dash cam, or even a proper hood cam, would be a welcome sight, because this has really been my main pet peeve with the driving in GT7. Also, quickly, another pet peeve, they got rid of the corner and brake marker cones in GT7 and replaced them with these big yellow icons, which suck. Bring back the cones. But let's bring it back to the positives, and I need to mention the car sounds, which are truly phenomenal. Listen to this Z. I mean, you can tell right away with eyes closed that there's a VQ in there. Upgrades will change the way your car sounds too, and there's plenty of great little audio details, from the satisfying rush of nitrous to the little ticks your engine makes cooling down after a race. Now, I don't think I need to say much about the visuals because honestly, they speak for themselves, but even now I am constantly taken aback by how good GT7 looks. When it comes to the cars, there is no compromise. Even under the closest scrutiny, these models hold up, and the game's lighting does nothing but complement that. During replays with ray tracing on, most shots genuinely look real. If you look hard enough, you can see some corners cut in things like distant shadows and environment draw distance, but the graphics budget was clearly focused on the right areas. This game is gorgeous. Alright, so that's the basics out of the way. Let's dive into the actual gameplay and campaign experience. The main campaign takes place through the cafe, and it goes like this. You're given a menu with objectives. For example, collect 3 specific Ferraris by securing a podium in 3 Italian-themed races. Once complete, you turn in the menu for your reward. At first, I was really into it. It was goofy in a distinctly Gran Turismo way, and it felt like a good way to see a lot of what the game has to offer. However, the novelty wore off after the 20th menu or so, when I was just kind of waiting for the real career to start. You see, it never progresses beyond what I just explained. For the majority of the campaign, you compete in 3 races to collect 3 cars, turn it in for a new menu, and compete in another 3 races for another 3 cars. There's no through line. You're given dozens of cars you won't use, and you'll never race the same one more than a few times. This is in stark contrast to GT4, for example, where you took on an actual race career. The car you started with could be with you for dozens of races, and buying a new car was a decision that took real thought. You had to manage your budget, look at what races were available to you with the cars in your garage, and really roleplay a serious race career. Unfortunately, none of that exists in GT7. And it gets worse. Almost none of the events are even real races. They're all video game catch-up missions. Each one starts you in last place on a rolling start, with the drivers so spaced out that the lead driver can be 30 to 40 seconds ahead of you. And it's not set up like a time trial here. You still have to cross the finish line in front of that lead driver to win. They just get a huge head start. Almost every campaign event is like this, and I can picture the meetings that led to this decision because in a way it makes sense. Starting you in back and spacing your opponents out means that throughout the whole race you should be fighting for positions, which keeps things interesting. But especially later on, it didn't even work like that. I'd either fly ahead in the first lap and spend the next 4 by myself, or in Forza Drivatar style, the lead driver would be so far ahead that even though I was crushing their lap times, lap after lap, there just wasn't enough time to catch up before the race was over. And I want to be super clear here because, well, I'm ragging on this pretty hard. This race style and the whole cafe system isn't necessarily bad on its own. It's just bad as the main campaign of the game. Honestly, if GT7 had a real race career first, the cafe menus would have been an awesome endgame progression system to stock up on cars and revisit the circuits in a new way. Unfortunately, that's not what we got, and I do feel the game is worse off for it. But with that aside, GT7 absolutely redeems itself in my eyes with the massive amount of other fantastic content there is to enjoy here. Many fan favorites have returned and are better than ever, like the infamous license tests, or Scapes, the photo mode that puts your in-game car in real-world environments. And there are thousands of locations all over the world. The photo mode itself is very feature-rich as well, even letting you mask certain elements of the scene so you can apply effects and filters only where you want them. This, paired with the replay mode and Scapes movies, makes for an unmatched photo and video creation experience. And even though the cafe didn't offer traditional races, You can get your fix with the arcade races, or very fully featured custom races. There is a lot of freedom and customization here to get the racing you want. You can also do things like the circuit experience, time trials, or drift trials. There's also about 50 missions to complete too. There is a daunting amount of content to complete in Gran Turismo 7, and I'm here for it. Now it's time to talk about car customization, another absolute high point. Most all cars get access to a huge wealth of upgrades, from tunable ECUs and anti-lag systems to nitrous kits and hydraulic handbrakes. You can also install power restrictors and ballasts, meaning that you can add weight or reduce power to make a car fit a certain race restriction. You can swap parts and adjust your tune at will, and even save multiple setups on one car. It's an incredibly user-friendly system. The tuning as a whole, by the way, is great and has real performance benefits or problems if you tune poorly. You can really screw up a car with a bad setup. And things keep getting better with the visual upgrades. Just about every car in the game gets a wide body option, save for most race spec cars that are already wide body. Now, to be fair, most wide bodies are just a simple rolled or pumped fender look, but some cars do get custom kits, and even the simple wide bodies still look good. You also get a moderate but well-chosen selection of wheels to pick from, and most every car has access to some good-looking aero and a customizable wing. Look at what you can do here. Forza, take note. The goodies don't stop there though. There's also hood pins, toe straps, roll cages, license plate relocation, headlight color, and more. You can take any car in the game and turn it into a realistic looking track car. The paint booth also lets you pick from hundreds of custom colors and finishes, or actual manufacturer colors. If you want to paint a Mustang in Nissan's Millennium Jade, you can. The livery editor is impressively robust as well. You get access to quick race options like slapping your name and number on a car, or you can get custom with it. And like in GT Sport, you can even import images from your computer to use in-game. I imported my team logo for the windshield banner on all my cars, as well as putting it on my race suit, which has my channel logo on the back too. I could talk for hours about how good the customization is here considering the size of the car list, but alas, we do need to move on. Let's talk about the multiplayer experience. There are two main online modes, Lobby and Sport, as well as two-player local split screen. Lobby is as you might expect. You can create your own rooms or join others, and there's plenty of options to pick from to create the room style you want. I love that there's even a race for fun or race for real tag to help players quickly find the type of vibe they're aiming for. Then we have Sport mode, which GT Sport players will be familiar with. There are 3 races to choose from that currently rotate on a weekly basis, and each has their own style. Occasionally, there will also be championships, but that, along with Race C for whatever reason, have yet to kick off by the time of this review. I have to say that I love Gran Turismo's way of running online. You can qualify for a race at any time, and you get placed on the start grid based on your qualifying time. And most importantly, there are ranking systems. One is driver rating. This one goes up just based on how well you place in races. But there's also a sportsmanship rating. This goes up based on how clean you race. Hitting walls, other drivers, or cutting corners will drop your rating. These two systems in tandem make for some great lobbies, because for example, if you're slow but a clean driver, you'll get paired with other slow, clean drivers. It's not a perfect system, but it is the best I've seen in a major racing title, and Polyphony has been clear about their intentions to improve it over time. The one thing I have yet to see, at least for now, is balance of power races, or BOP. This was something introduced in GT Sport that normalized certain classes of cars and meant that no matter what you brought to a race, it would be competitive. This was great for people who didn't want to dive too deeply into tuning or worry about building meta cars. You could, for example, just buy any Group 4 car you liked and use it in any Group 4 race. Hopefully that returns soon for GT7. Now, before we wrap up, I need to address 2 very important issues with Gran Turismo 7: microtransactions and always online. You cannot play 90% of the game, including the campaign or even accessing your garage, without an internet connection. All you can do offline is Music Rally, which, by the way, we didn't even talk about, but it's there. And you can do some arcade racing offline as well. That's it. If the servers go down for any reason, which they will even for things like game updates, you essentially can't play the game, and that's a serious issue. GT7 also has microtransactions in the form of being able to purchase in-game money with real money, and sadly, it's clear the game has been designed around this. For example, you cannot sell cars in your garage, you can only remove them. There are also limited time availability windows and exclusive invites to buy rare, expensive cars, which are clearly meant to get you to buy real money or suffer the fear of missing out. You can, of course, play the game without spending real money, as I have, but it will take some grinding, and anytime a game is built around an MTX model, especially a $70 game like this, the game is worse off for it. Alright, and on that note, let's close out the video with some final thoughts here. Gran Turismo 7 is a flawed game, but I still truly think this will go down as one of the best racing games of the decade. One that pushed the envelope in terms of visual fidelity, and one that brought sim racing back to the mainstream. This is a return to glory for Gran Turismo, but it's not without its problems. Luckily, many of them are addressable, and Polyphony has stated that they are committed to improving GT7 over the coming years. For now though, I'm having an absolute blast with the game, and I'm hopeful for its future. So everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.